Welcome, everyone. We are going to wait about a minute here to make sure that all participants have joined in. So we appreciate you being with us this evening. We'll get started in about a minute. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. We are here for our first provider information session of the year. Welcome to 2025, and thanks for sharing your evening with us after what we know has been most likely a long day. As we get started here, we want to just make sure that folks who are joining us who need language interpretation are able to access the appropriate channels. Si está con nosotros y necesita interpretación al español, tenemos intérprete disponible. Puede seleccionar el icono que es un globito en la parte inferior de su pantalla y ahí podrá escuchar la sesión de hoy en español. Also, this evening, if this is your first time, this is a little information around how this webinar will be ran. We have the chat is off, but you are able and welcome and invited to make your questions on the material that is shared this evening via the question and answer box. You'll see it at the bottom of your screen and you can type in your questions in there. At the end of each section tonight, we'll pause and we'll have our colleague Ronnie who will help us facilitate those questions. We'll do our best to try to answer all of these depending on time, of course. And if we don't get to your questions or don't have the answers for you tonight, we will circle back with you. Before I move on, just a quick notice, we do also have a closed caption. If that's not populating for you automatically, you can select the CC icon on your screen and it will give you the closed captions for the session tonight as well. Our agenda for tonight is here. We'll go ahead. We have 3 items, but these are items full of substance, and there will be lots of information. The slides will be available for you on our website by tomorrow or sometime tomorrow. So if this feels like a lot, please know that the information will be available for you as well, and the recording will also be there so you can go back and listen and share with your colleagues as well. So we'll go ahead and get started with information around what it takes to become an employment-related daycare listed provider. We have our team to share that information. We'll also have Dr. Wade join us to cover information around First Children's Finance business supports and some service that they need to share. And we'll end with some general agency and program updates on behalf of Doug. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. We have Jennifer, Joe, and Joanne joining us. I'll kind of hand it to them and let them introduce themselves as well as they move us through this portion. Jennifer, you.
Yes, and good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Eras, and I will share a little bit about the basics about the ERDC program and what it is, and then I'll pass it over to my colleague. The next slide. Okay, so just in what we'll be sharing today, I'll share what is ERDC, which that's always fun to start out with an acronym. So that's our child care program. It stands for Employment Related Daycare. However, it's not just employment related daycare. So I'll share a little bit of information about that. Um, and then how families benefit from it and how this can help providers as well. And we'll share a little bit about the process of how to become an ERDC provider. So how to become a provider who can receive payment from the employment related daycare program, and then also some resources that we have available. Okay, so what is ERDC? So as I said, this is it's called the Employment Related Daycare Program, and it's a little bit of a dated name. It's a bit old because the program has expanded quite a bit in the last several years. So for employment related daycare, we can cover childcare for families who are working, families who are attending school, and that could be for younger parents, it could be like a high school or GED completion program. And for those who are over 20, that could basically be any schooling that they're taking that's going to lead to um, job related knowledge and skills. And then also we cover childcare for families who are participating in what's called the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. That's the cash assistance program through the Oregon Department of Human Services. So they used to have a separate childcare program, but a little over a year and a half ago, we incorporated those families into our childcare program. And basically we cover the cost of childcare. We can also cover the cost of some registration and other fees that are required. With the child care program, the family would need to apply for benefits through the Oregon Department of Human Services, and they have a one online eligibility system, so they can either apply online, they can apply over the phone, and they can also apply through an app that they have for the one system. The family, once they're approved, they let the Department of Human Services know who their child care provider is, or they report that straight to our direct pay unit, and the provider gets connected to the family. And at that point in time, we start sending out billing forms to the provider. This program is a program that pays providers directly. So we don't pay the child care benefit to the family. We issue payments to providers. That's either through a check or direct deposit, whichever one the provider chooses. And then essentially once the provider gets those billing forms, they fill out the billing information and send it in. They can either send it in, fax it in, or email the billing form in to receive payment. And next slide. Okay, and so as I said, our program has gone through a lot of changes in the last few years. So after we came out of, or started coming out of COVID, we were able to adjust our copays. So if any of you had worked with the employment related daycare program in the past, you would know that some of our copays, or the portion of the child care benefit that, or child care that the provider has to pay directly to providers, they could be really high. We had some incredibly high copays. I think on average, families' copays were about $235 a month. Whereas since 2021, when we got a new copay structure, our average copay is actually about $9. So that's just a portion of the childcare cost that the family would pay directly to the provider. And then Delk processes the payment for basically the childcare payment minus whatever that copay is. We also had changes where we now pay providers as soon as they receive the billing form. So we used to ask providers to wait until all of the childcare was done being provided for the month, and then they could submit the billing form. But now we send those billing forms out around the beginning of the month. The provider can turn around and fill it out for the anticipated attendance that the child has for that month. So it's more based on the times that the child is scheduled to be in care rather than the attendance or the amount of time they actually spent in care. January 2023, we expanded our student eligibility. So before that, we used to say that families had to be working and going to school. But at that point in time, we started allowing basically non-working students to qualify for the program as well. We changed how hours were authorized. So now there's either a part-time authorization or a full-time authorization, which makes it a lot easier for providers to know what to expect or know what the minimum number of hours would be that they could receive for the month. And then we expanded medical leave to cover more situations to try and stabilize childcare for families. In July 2023, we stopped closing cases for a lot of different reasons. So we actually made a more protected 12-month eligibility. So when a family qualifies, you have a better understanding and knowledge that they're going to keep qualifying for a full year after that point. And then, like I said, we started covering childcare for families who were on the TANF program. This last May, we had another expansion where we stopped looking at immigration status or citizen status for the children receiving care. So the program never looked at the status of the parents. It was always a child's benefit. And so before May, we did have to review children to see if they met a qualifying immigration status or citizenship status. But our state made some expansions and put in some state funding that allowed us to cover any child that needs childcare regardless of their status. We have some future changes that are coming that are going to provide easier eligibility for families who are either working with child welfare, that could be foster parents as well. So those are going to be some exciting changes that'll be happening this coming July. And then in future years, we have some additional expansions that are happening. So we're actually going to see even a little bit longer certification periods. So right now I said it was 12 months, that we're going to see those get a little bit longer in the coming years. And we'll see some more populations like teen parents or those who are at risk of being homeless have easier access to ERD. And that was a big one. So that was a lot of information on that slide. So next slide, please. There we go. And so what ERDC offers for families is, we all know that childcare is expensive, but yet a lot of times families can't afford to pay what they need to access childcare. But we also know that childcare providers aren't, like, a lot of times they're charging what they perceive a family can afford rather than what it actually costs to provide childcare, because providing childcare is expensive too. So this helps to offer some affordability for families. It allows families to have a larger choice of the type of childcare. So we try to set our rates at a level where they'll be able to access any kind of childcare that's available in their area. We also offer like this helps support stability with their employment and options for them to gain more skills and knowledge and education to advance their careers. It offers them the ability to place their child in high quality childcare, which has some amazing long-term outcomes for children. So children who can spend time in high quality childcare settings, they have higher high school graduation rates, higher home ownership rates, higher lifetime earnings. Like there's wonderful outcomes that come from being able to have children spend time in these high quality childcare settings. And then also a benefit of ERDC is that it offers more consistent care. So that's one of the things that we really try to promote, is allowing providers to know what their payments are going to be and when their payments are going to come, and allow parents to have that consistency of knowing that they'll have coverage for a year at a time. It's not something that gets redetermined or that their benefits would be shut down. And forward, there we go. So benefits for providers. These are some things that have come a long way in the program. but we have more stability in the payments and the amounts that are guaranteed with some, like I said, some changes to our payment practices, expansions to our absent day policy. We used to limit how many absent days a provider can charge, but we've had expansions to that. It allows providers to increase their enrollment in their child care setting by having more families in their area be able to afford and to sign up for those slots. It supports quality care, and we have some support to go for providers as well with um, trainings and things along those lines. And then one of the things that we're striving for is more reliable payments. We want providers who are helping to serve ERDC families to know that they're going to get paid, know what they're going to get paid, and know when they're going to get paid. So that is something that we've been really striving to make better in this program over the last several years. Alrighty, so now I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to my colleague, Joe, who can talk to you a little bit about how to become an ERDC provider.
Hi there. All right. I'm gonna just kind of go through this stuff. You know, the points we're gonna be going through are all listed in the provider guide and on the provider listing form, and then you all have access to this document as well. So just real quickly, some of the requirements for becoming ERDC listed. You know, first of all, everyone has to go through the background checks and be listed in the CVR. That is a requirement in order to be approved for ERDC payments. And on the next slide, you'll see that there's, you know, we'll give you a link so that you can know exactly where to go for that. You know, we try to make it as easy as possible. The other next requirement is trainings. There are required trainings for providers. If you can click on the slide for me. And just wanted to really mainly point out that the trainings could be different depending on whether you're related to all the children or not, or if you're licensed or not, or just whatever your situation is. There could be a little bit different list of trainings. So you always want to make sure you really pay attention to that when you're applying. And then also you always have resources as far as the child care resource and referral to help out, or the direct pay unit to kind of help direct you if you do have questions when you're doing your form and trainings. Next point is the child care provider listing form. So the other requirement is even if you're licensed with the Office of Child Care, the Child Care Licensing Division, you still do need to fill out a listing form, and that is a 7494D, and there will be a link on the next slide as well for quick and easy access to that, and that is in different languages as well. That can be given by the ODHS benefit worker, or you can just download one on our provider page. And the last requirement listed here is the visit and inspection. So anyone who is not related to all the children in their care, they do have a home inspection, and that is a requirement also to become approved. And this is just kind of the highlights of the big requirements. For a full list of requirements, you can go to the provider page, or it's also in the provider guide and that kind of thing. All right, let's go to the next slide. There's the visit inspection. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you go back up one time real quick? We made this little one-page document that you can click on the link at the bottom there. You know, at some point, if you wanted to kind of see a visual of the process and, you know, how to get approved, but we just wanted to make sure we pointed that out to you so that you have that as well. And then this is just a quick list of some of the main links. And then also the bullet points underneath them are just the things you can find out on that page. So, you know, I'll let you kind of look through those because I would like to make sure that Joanne has enough time to talk about the process, the time frame, and that kind of thing. So please feel free to revisit this slide. Take note of these links because they are very helpful. And then you don't always have to call the direct pay unit or call for help because it's right there at your fingertips. All right, Joanne.
Hi, thank you, Joe. So next slide, please. So I'm Joanne Lindorfer. I'm the operations manager for Direct Pay Unit. And just very quickly, this is the general ERDC listing process for providers. And so the provider receives the listing form and completes it and submits it to the Direct Pay Unit. And so we receive it and we review it for completeness. It takes about 3 days from when we receive it to review it for completeness. And then if it is incomplete, we will call you or send a letter for you to call DPU. If it's missing a signature, we will send the form back to you for you to sign it, and then the process starts over. If you are licensed with the Child Care Licensing Division, then we will process the form and put you in approved status, and you are approved to receive child care subsidy payments. And you will get an approval letter in the mail. For licensed exempt providers, you're placed into a pending status as you need to complete additional requirements. Next slide, please. And so those requirements are to pass and be registered on the Central Background Check Registry. And if you are caring for non-relative children, you need to pass the health and safety visit. And so that process could take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. And once you have passed both of those requirements, then DPU will place you into an approved status, and you will get an approval notice at that time. And then once you receive that approval notice, the parent, as long as they're eligible for ERDC, can call DPU or their ODHS worker to get you connected in our system to issue out billing forms for payment. Next slide. And real quickly, providers can receive payment. Next slide, please. Can receive payment either by check or direct deposit. I think we're having a little system issue. I have one more slide, direct deposit slide. So there's 3 top reasons why direct deposit is great. It's free, easy, and convenient. All you have to do is fill out a form, so call DPU, and we'll send you that form. And you would email it or fax it into us, and we'll enter it into the system. If you change accounts, you'll need to send us a written request to cancel that direct deposit. So once you sign up and we enter in the system, you'll receive a paper check for the first payment, and then the rest of it will be direct deposit into your account. It may take a few extra days for your payments to get into your account, depending on your bank. But you will receive a payment receipt every month when your payment goes through that will show how much you get paid. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Hi, everybody. My name is Ronnie. I will be asking some of the questions that you put into the Q&A. So it looks like Jen was able to get in there and answer some of the questions. So since we're short on time, I won't recap those. But if we could, and Jen is actually, so there was a lot of questions around the wait list. Can you talk about the wait list? How long is it? Can people expedite the wait list?
Yes, I can talk about the wait list. It's not super great news, but we did put a wait list in place back in November of 2023. We currently have a little over 9,000 families that are on that wait list. All I can say about the questions of, how long will the wait list be in place? How long until we can start pulling families off? Is it's going to depend on funding that we receive for the program. So at the current amount of funding that we usually get, we won't be deactivating the wait list, and we won't necessarily even be able to pull families off of the wait list for at least the next 2 years. And like I said, that's if we don't get additional funding. So we get funding through the legislature. So if they decide to increase the amount of funding we receive, that could change this answer 100%. So it definitely depends on the funding that comes to the program, but based on our current budget and what we currently have right now and what we think we may have for the next budget cycle, which is it's every 2 years, starting in July is when our next budget cycle starts. We don't have sufficient funding to pull families off the wait list. There are bypasses to the wait list. So I saw someone had said they had 2 families apply, and that's great that they applied. They may not have met one of the bypasses, so that's why they would have been put on the wait list. But if circumstances change, we also encourage families to come back in and apply. The ODHS staff can walk through what those bypasses are and how families can qualify. And I can list out some of those bypasses in that question there, but I hope that answers the question as best I can. I apologize, I don't have better news.
Thank you, Jen. And I see that you're answering some of the remaining questions in the Q&A. So we'll let you give that personal TA to that. Okay, so that's the end of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, team, and appreciate you sharing all of that information. We'll go ahead and transition at this time to Dr. Wade, who is here with us to give some information for First Children's Finance. Dr. Wade. You are muted.
I am muted. You know, it pops up and it says, you need to get off mute. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Jamisha Wade, State Director for First Children's Finance. So we can go ahead and advance the slides. So at First Children's Finance, our mission is to advance and to increase the supply and business sustainability of excellent childcare. So we started back in 1991, and as you can see here in 2006, we became a national nonprofit. 2008, we opened the Michigan and Iowa offices, and then 2023, we opened a couple of other state offices, or a state office in Vermont, and we also do consulting across many different states. But what we're most excited about now is being here in Oregon in 2024. We have been working in Oregon for over 8 years. And so to finally have a state office, we were really excited about that. And so I want you to meet my team who's not here, but when you email us and call us, these are the folks that you will get to talk to. And so we have a team of 2 business development managers. You can go to the next slide. And then 4 business development specialists and a program specialist. And so I'm gonna wait a second to make sure the slides are keeping up. That's my wonderful team. I just didn't want to move forward without acknowledging them. So they're a great team ready to serve and support you in so many ways, 3 of which are bilingual Spanish, and we serve the entire state. And so we can support you wherever you are. A little bit more about First Children's Finance. We have what we call a theory of change. And so what's unique about our organization is that we work at 3 different levels to increase the sustainability and supply of childcare businesses. So we work with you as individual business owners. We work with the community to say, hey, there's some things that need to be addressed with childcare in our specific community, and we need support doing that. And we also work at the systems level, and so we'll spend a lot of time in session as well. And so if you go to the next slide, we really want to partner with you as childcare businesses. We're like 2 or 3 slides behind. And so I just want to make sure we're keeping up. We are on the slide where we talk about what we do. The next one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we really focus on helping children and families and communities thrive by increasing the availability, affordability, and quality of early care and education. And so we accomplish this by providing financial and business development assistance to childcare businesses serving low and moderate income families primarily, but that's just our priority, but we serve all children and families. And we really focus on building those partnerships that connect the businesses with the resources of the public and private sectors. And so if you go to the next slide, you can see a few of our services that we offer. So there's ongoing education, including webinars and trainings that are all state approved, and business leadership education as well. We also do startup support. We do a financial analysis for your business. And I know some of these words can seem a little scary, but we're here to support you wherever you are in that process. We also do kind of a case-by-case crisis support with business consultation. And then here, most recently, our main work is working with the Child Care Infrastructure Fund. So if you desire to apply, we can support you with that, and including translation support and, again, business training and resource development. So I have a few things to share today, as you know, because you're knee deep, really eyeball deep in the work. We did a childcare business sustainability survey. And so this is where you probably got a few emails from us. So we really want to appreciate those of you that were able to participate. And those of you that weren't, we will be doing this every year. And so in September and October, we administered the Childcare Business Sustainability Survey. This is a national survey that we administer in each of the offices that we have, and it was tailored to be Oregon specific. And so our questions are around funding programs and our work over the last few years, and we also asked a few different hot topics. So the purpose of this survey was really to understand the financial and operational health of childcare businesses here. So through questions related to enrollment, staffing, facilities, expenses, sustainability practices, and supports needed. So I want to be mindful that this was from data from 2023 that we presented at the end of 2024. And then in a couple of months, we will be asking for data from 2024. So here's an overview of the survey respondents. So we were able to directly contact all registered and certified family childcare and childcare center operators. And so that was over 3,200 providers. And we got about 600 responses, with 378 being included in the final analysis, because those providers completed the consent and screening confirmation. And so we had about an 11.8% response rate, and we did compensate for this survey. So you can see here that the response rate, I'm pointing as if you can see me pointing. You can see here that the response rates across license types are over 10% across all license types, and over 15% of certified family providers responding. So if you look here, the response rate listed is by total providers contacted, not necessarily license type representation in survey results. So of 378 people, providers, we had about a little over 27% for certified centers, and about 40% were certified family, and about 33% were registered family. So if we go to the next slide, you can see here that the representation across counties, as well as responses by preferred language. So this table here is identifying response rates by county, not overall county representation in survey results. So it's saying of the providers in the county, how many of them responded to the survey. For example, if you look in Grant County, there were 4 childcare providers contacted and only 1 responded, resulting in a 25% response for Grant County. In the report, we have like a really long report that you can read on our website. We see a total county representation in the survey, and the proportionality of that representation compared to provider distribution across the state. So overall, the survey captures responses from a broad enough range of counties with alignment to the state's provider distribution, but we really need your support and help for those future efforts to include additional outreach to ensure even more participation. So thank you for that. Just a little bit of demographic information. Most of the survey respondents were women, making up about 92% of the total. Over 50% of the providers were between 40 and 54. We can go to a few more slides, while about 23% were between 25 and 39, and another 23% were 55 or older. And about 25% of the providers are from racial and ethnic minority groups, while 65% identify as white. These demographics are similar across different types of licenses. So most childcare business owners have some college education, which shows the increased professionalization of the field, thanks to some support and resources. So the childcare industry includes both experienced providers and newcomers. Many businesses have been operating for over 10 years. However, 18% of participants have been in business for 2 years or less. So 28% of registered families participating in the survey have been in operation for 2 years or less. And so this shows that recent state efforts have encouraged new people to enter the field, and it's important to support the sustainability of these new providers. So we also see that 25% of certified centers have been in business for 31 years or more. But certified family providers tend to have more experience on average. This variety in experience levels among childcare providers means that they are all at different stages of running their businesses, and acknowledging these differences will help us and other partners provide better support by knowing who we are serving. Let's talk a little bit about enrollment. This year's survey shows that 43% of providers have stable enrollment, while 32% report an increase, and about 25% experienced a decline in enrollment. So we analyzed enrollment data against ages of children in care. And so we saw that registered and certified family who care for at least one infant generally see stronger enrollment with either increased or steady numbers. However, centers that care for at least one infant tend to have weaker enrollment compared to those that do not provide infant care. So this shows that there's a possibly more benefits for family child care providers versus centers when it comes to providing infant care. So a little bit more details about enrollment. Here we see that there's been some open responses. You can go to the next slide from providers, directly from providers. These are quotes when asked how enrollment changed in 2023. We identified several themes about enrollment changes, including public funding challenges, expansion, and enrollment declines. Many providers talked about challenges with public funding, identifying competition with free programs for public funding. Okay, we can talk about enrollment when it comes to expansion, because others mentioned how they expanded to meet the needs of their community, thanks to some public funding and other grants. So unfortunately, others did talk about declines in their operations. And so the changing enrollment trends show that the childcare sector is evolving, but providers are trying to adapt to new family needs, economic challenges, and competition from other programs. But as you'll see on the next slide, we still have a lot of slots open. So if we go to the next slide after this, then I'll hold up for a second. Yes, I'll give everybody a chance to kind of look at how the enrollment changed. So we have here that says, I've been in this field since 1990 and have never seen it so slow. There's a smaller wait list, more people only want full-time spots. Children and parents are not ready for childcare after the pandemic, which makes it incredibly difficult. And sometimes families feel embarrassed to put their kids in childcare. And so we know as professionals that we can handle those challenges. And so we want to be available to support families as well. So I mentioned that there's still a lot of spots open. And so we did have respondents say that there are open slots. 2,400 actually is what was reported in this survey. So I'll talk later about open slots that are unfilled, specifically due to not having staffing. But here we are seeing slots that could be filled but remain open due to factors other than workforce and staffing. So the respondents, those that participated in our survey, reported that over 2,400 total open slots that could be filled without hiring additional staff. So in the graph, you see a breakdown here of the distribution of open slots by license type. For example, and you can go to the next slide. Registered family have 35% of their open slots for school-aged children, while certified family reported less than 15% of their open slots are for school-aged children, and over 45% of open slots for preschoolers. So we think about the total number of vacant slots by license type. You can go to the next slide, please. Yep, there we go. Across all age groups, over 50% of providers reported having at least one available slot in every age group, and respondents and reported open slots that could be filled without even hiring additional staff. So 50% have at least one available infant slot, 60% at least one available toddler slot, 70% at least one available preschool slot, and 57% at least one available school-age slot. So I said we would talk about staffing, so we'll go to the next slide. Next two slides, actually. Almost half of providers reported that they were able to maintain the staffing levels required. And about 30% were able to keep their staffing levels even higher than what was required. However, 25% of providers had trouble maintaining the needed staffing levels, which led some to use overtime or employ other flexible staff options. So lastly, 4% of providers laid off staff. Is very unfortunate during the year. So of the providers that were surveyed, 54% reported at least one open teaching position, like a teacher assistant, a teacher or an assistant or a caregiver. 25% reported at least one open leadership position, such as a director or assistant director or provider. And 17% reported at least one open non-teaching position, like front office or cook. And we know that all of these roles are important to running a successful business and supporting families. So if we go to the next slide, we see that over 2/3 of respondents, which is about 70%, said hiring qualified employees was either very difficult or somewhat difficult. And the certified centers, about 81% of them said that they were significantly more likely to report challenges compared to certified or registered family providers, where 51% faced similar challenges. And so in the previous, go to the next slide. But then in the previous slide, we saw data around open slots. Here we see the data around how many slots were reported as being unfilled, specifically due to a lack of staff, where you can see the average number of slots unfilled by age range and license type. Okay, so in order to attract and keep staff, go to the next slide, please. Many providers introduced new benefits in 2023. And so the most common benefits offered were increased hourly wages, about 73.7%, and paid time off, about 76%. And so there was also flexible scheduling and discounted childcare were popular as well. And then these actions show a proactive effort to improve work conditions and support staff retention, which we really, really need and really appreciate. There were also hiring bonuses, about 9%, and employee bonuses, which are about 30% were offered, were the least frequently used. However, despite these steps, only 32% of providers feel confident they can maintain these higher costs. So just want to reiterate that there are sacrifices being made by providers in order to keep the staff that they do have. Can you go to the next slide, please? So it's a couple of responses. Someone says, I'm working on increasing the tuition, but I'm not able to break even. My sustainability is at stake. Enrollment is extremely unstable. I add a kid and unexpectedly lose two. It's a very strange trend. This year, we are working with a very tight budget. We don't know if we can retain staff for the next hiring. So those are just a few things that people shared in their vulnerability and honesty with us. So let's talk about facilities as I wrap this up. A little bit, since we are talking about Child Care Infrastructure Fund as well. Nearly half of providers indicated they had a facility maintenance repair that they chose to delay fixing. So of the total respondents, we had 41% of centers we reported a lot that were deferring maintenance. I don't have to go into all the specifics. You can see them here for the sake of time. Of the providers who did delay those repairs, the majority cited financial constraints as the primary reason. And so you can see here a couple of the open-ended responses that reveal a consistent theme of limited funds for essential repairs, with responses like cost, lack of funds, financial strain, appearing quite frequently. So many providers also indicated that they had to prioritize funds to use them for immediate needs. And so I'm not telling you all anything that is surprising by any means, but hopefully you're seeing that there's peer support and that we can use this data to continue to make advances of support and resources for us as a field. So when you talk about expenses, here's just a few results in the question asked. You'll see a few results of the question asking how expenses changed during 2023. Notably here, we can go to expenses, even visually, is that there was a modest or significant increase across all categories. And as you can see, some of the most significant cost increases for businesses were supplies and learning materials, with more mixed responses for payroll or rent or mortgage increases. We can skip past liability insurance. We'll go to sustainability, because that's always important because we want to keep everyone in business. So childcare providers face financial challenges in 2023 due to rising costs and limited funding. As a result, nearly 70% of providers raised tuition rates this year. Additionally, 39% of them plan to increase rates by 5% or more in what was 2024. So more registered family childcare providers indicate that their business stability was similar to last year, with 63% feeling this way compared to 54% of centers and 47% of certified family childcare providers. Additionally, I think it's important to note that a larger percentage of centers reported being more stable than in the previous year, with 24% of centers expressing this sentiment compared to 22% of certified family childcare and 11% of registered family childcare providers. I want to talk a little bit about household income while we're here. So when asked if their household income has been impacted by financial losses to their businesses, unfortunately, nearly 50% of providers responded that it had been impacted. On a later slide, we are able to see some of the financial decisions that have been made by providers, which identifies how household income and savings have been impacted. And you can see those themes emerging in the open responses here as well. So providers did cite, and you all know this, reducing their own wages to support their staff, not taking a salary to cover operating expenses, and pulling from their own personal savings or leaning on personal equity to cover costs. So when it came to enrollment, tuition, and other cost decisions, we are able to see the actions providers reported taking to manage their businesses. So nearly 70% reported increasing tuition rates. 60% of childcare providers plan to increase those rates, and many are choosing modest increases or no changes to avoid burdening families, which again, we always appreciate, but we really want to make changes in this way. And sorry, so I'm on the next slide with financial decisions. When asked if providers took any of the listed actions to manage their businesses, you'll see the most widely reported actions taken were about either not paying themselves or dipping into emergency funds or savings to help sustain the businesses. So 44% of providers on the financial decision slide, 44% of providers reported being unable to pay themselves at times. And over a third of providers reported using business emergency funds to cover costs. Okay, almost done here. And a look at the respondent perspectives here. we are seeing, okay, yeah, we're in the same spot. So here we are seeing additional perspectives gauging agreement or disagreement with the statements listed. So we see that 60% of providers reported feeling optimistic about the future of their business, but over 80% of providers agree or strongly agree that the childcare industry is in a crisis. So through analysis, we can infer some possible contributing factors. In the third statement, over 65% of providers do not believe the childcare workforce is being paid fairly. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but it is important that we see it front and center. Additionally, when asked about plans to sell or close in the next 12 months, the majority of providers reported they strongly disagreed that they plan to sell or close in the next 12 months due to either retirement or financial limitations, which again reflects optimism about continued operations. Fewer than 4% of providers reported plans to sell or close in the next 12 months due to retirement, while 11% reported plans to sell or close in the next 12 months due to financial limitations. Last couple of slides, when we talk about access to public funding sources, we asked providers which funding programs they had participated in, and 57% of respondents did not access public funding in 2023. And when asked to explain why they did not access public funding, 46% reported they applied but were not selected, which we also have heard from providers in our startup and focus groups. Additionally, 41% of providers who are not participating in public funding reported their business did not qualify for public funding. So, of course, we will talk lastly about business practices and support needs. Over 60% of providers reported agreeing or strongly agreeing they have access to business supports. So I think this is probably a testament to the work being done across the state to provide business supports at regional and statewide levels. When asked specifically about types of support that would be beneficial to their businesses, 68% of respondents reported facility improvement grants would be beneficial to their business, and 52% of providers reported that support in accessing public funding would also be beneficial. So this slide, I also think is a great example of how we can use the survey results and some of the reported needs to inform the supports and services provided to childcare business owners. So as far as next steps, this webinar, like I said, will be available. We've also done a separate webinar, and the slides from that are available, and also a report in multiple languages. And so this data is already informing the supports and services that are offered for childcare business owners. And then we really want as much participation as possible. And so we will be doing a survey, I believe it will launch February 2025 to collect data from 2024. So as you're thinking and reflecting on your new year, please plan to participate in that as well. So I can take some questions now. I think I got a couple of minutes. Let's see.
Hi, Dr. Wade. This is Ronnie. There was a question about how to reach out to your office, and you have the information there on the slide. And we were also able to put that in the answer that question. I think the only remaining question was that an attendee says that State Farm dropped them last year because they had childcare in their home as a certified family. Then there was another response, I'm not sure if it's from the same attendee, but said Next Insurance seemed to be the only choice. Do you have other thoughts, Dr. Wade?
Yeah, I think the root of insurance companies dropping family childcare providers is just a bias that exists. And so that is one of those kind of system-wide things that we deal with. And so while I cannot make a recommendation on another insurance company right now, we have seen providers, so checking into your peer network, we've seen providers be successful in finding other insurers. So it's unfortunate that you were dropped. And also we see more people dropped when they are family childcare providers, but we know that that's very important, and family childcare needs to remain as part of our ecosystem. And so we are taking all of this feedback, and if that's happened to anyone else, we'd love to hear that. Or we don't love to hear it, but please report that to us as well, so that we can use that data to help to keep this from happening as best we can.
Thank you. Another participant said, I believe there was an email sent out about a cohort. When will we get more information and know if we were accepted?
That's a great question, and not to put any fear in anyone's mind, but we had over 300 applications, which again shows a demand for what is needed to support on the business side of things. And so early next week, those acceptance letters will go out, and then we'll give people a chance to accept, or maybe decide it's not a good fit for them, and then we'll keep going. So there are trainings. I don't know if they're posted here, but we do have some trainings coming up, and so you can hopefully hear about those if you got accepted, if you applied, and many of you, I'm sure, did not apply for the cohorts, and we're still offering trainings such as planning for the future, annual budget and cash flow, separating your finances from separating your business finances from your personal finances, managing your enrollment. All of these different types of trainings can be found on our website as well.
Thank you, Dr. Wade. That seems to be it for the night.
Thank you all. We would love to work with you.
Thank you, Dr. Wade, and thanks for your grace as I transfer slides. I'm on the Spanish channel, so it's a little hard to hear, but I'll go ahead and at this point pass it on to Allison to walk us through the last portion of our agenda, which is the agency and program updates.
Thank you, Karina. We have just 3 updates tonight. Some will be repeats from past information sessions, so this will be quick. As you know, the Certified Family and Registered Family rules were recently revised. So those rules passed in January and will be effective on July 1st, 2025. And this slide is just a heads up that we will have a lot of implementation supports available for certified family and registered family providers. So be on the lookout for communication about rule guidance documents, templates for new policies. We'll host some additional sessions just for the rule revisions, and we will also have an online video series. So all of that coming soon, and just be watching your inboxes for more information. I'll go to the next slide. This is a slide that we've shared for the past, I think, 6 months. We have a CCLD, or Child Care Licensing Division, feedback form available on our website. I want to encourage you all to use this to share feedback about visits from our licensing office. So I'll put that link in the chat for you. And last slide, Karina. This is a reminder, we have a rulemaking advisory committee related to the employment-related daycare. So earlier tonight, Jen and Joe and Joanne were talking about the program, and there will be some rule revisions for some very specific parts of the rule set. There's a RAC that will be held on February 4th, and the application to join that RAC is open until January 24th. So on the RAC, you'll have the opportunity to share feedback, what your experience has been participating in the ERDC program, either as a provider or parent, or sometimes both. And we really value your feedback as we're developing and revising rules. So we encourage you to apply if you're interested. And I will put that link in the chat as well. And Karina, I think that's it for agency and program updates.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you to the ERDC team, and thank you to Dr. Wade as well for joining us today. That is what we have in terms of information for the evening. Thank you for joining us. Again, these materials, the slides in both English and Spanish, will be uploaded to our website. You can find the information there in the provider information sessions. and we'll also find the recordings in English and Spanish there. Once we close this out, we'll also have a survey that we invite you to respond to help us gauge what topics of interest you might have or what other questions, and how we can best prepare for these webinars ahead of time to make sure that the information you need and you're seeking is provided. Once more, thank you so much for your time this evening. May you have a wonderful night, and more so, may you have a wonderful 2025.